Chapter 1. The secret most never see. You wake up in the morning and before your feet even touch the floor, your mind is already at war, thoughts, distractions, messages, noise all pulling you in different directions. You check your phone before you breathe, chase stimulation before you create, and you wonder why your strength feels like it's slipping away. You tell yourself you'll be more disciplined tomorrow, but the truth is, tomorrow never comes for the undisciplined. Most people don't fail because life is unfair. They fail because they never learn to master themselves. They drift from one passion to another, believing they are searching for purpose, when in reality they are running from repetition. You say you want mastery, yet your focus breaks at the first moment of boredom. You want excellence, but you fear the dull, invisible years it takes to build it. You chase excitement instead of devotion, comfort instead of clarity, distraction instead of depth. There is an ancient reason most people live this way. It is not that the world is cruel, it is that the weak prefer noise to silence, because silence reveals the truth, and the truth is this: weakness does not die from motivation. It dies only through mastery. Miyamoto Musashi, the undefeated swordsman of Japan, understood this centuries ago. He fought over 60 duels, not because he loved combat, but because he loved truth. He learned that the real battle was never against another blade. It was against his own doubt, his own emotion, his own weakness. He called it the way of stillness, the way of clarity, the way of strength. The question is, do you still believe you can rise without discipline? Chapter 2. The Invitation. If you've ever looked at yourself and felt a quiet frustration, if you've ever felt that you could be so much more, but something inside keeps pulling you backward, then stay with me. This video is not made to entertain you. It is made to wake you. The teachings you are about to hear were born from silence, pain, and years of solitude. They are not theories. They are truths carved into the human spirit by struggle. So, if you're tired of drifting, if you're ready to train your mind the way Musashi trained his sword, then subscribe to this path. Not for numbers, not for ego, but for your own growth. Each week, we explore ancient warrior teachings and show you how to apply them to modern life work, focus, health, relationships, and purpose. Stay until the end, because if you truly listen, and more importantly, if you apply what you hear, you will not be the same person when this ends. The way of Musashi is not easy, but it is real, and once you begin to walk it, you will never again want the comfort of the old path. Chapter 3. A Time of Steel and Silence. In an age long before engines and screens, when Japan was a land of quiet valleys and steel, a young man named Ren lived in a fishing village by the sea. Each dawn, he watched the waves crashing against the rocks and imagined his life beyond them. He dreamed not of catching fish, but of wielding the sword, of becoming a warrior whose name would echo through the mountains. Stories of Musashi reached his ears, stories of an undefeated swordsman who lived without master or home, wandering the land seeking perfection in every strike. Ren was young and proud, and like many who dream, he mistook ambition for strength. He practiced with wooden swords made from driftwood, copying stances he had seen from passing soldiers. He was fast but unfocused, passionate but impatient. When he lost a village sparring match one evening, he threw his sword into the dirt, cursing his fate. "I train every day," he shouted to his teacher. "Why can't I be great?" The old fisherman only smiled. "Because you train for approval," he said, "not for mastery." That night, Ren couldn't sleep. He watched the moon ripple on the water and decided that he would leave his village to find Musashi himself. If he could learn from the greatest swordsman alive, perhaps then he would find his true power. At sunrise, he packed his few belongings and began walking toward the mountains, carrying nothing but his pride and a wooden sword. Chapter 4. The Boy Named Ren. Ren's journey took him through fields and forests, through quiet villages where peasants worked tirelessly from dawn until nightfall. He watched them bend their backs under the sun and thought to himself, "I am not like them. I was meant for more." But as he traveled farther, his pride began to feel heavier than his bag. After many days, he found Musashi sitting alone beside a river. There was no grand dojo, no line of students, no banners or glory. Only an old man sharpening his blade in silence. Ren bowed deeply and said, "Master Musashi, teach me the way of the sword. I want to be strong like you." Musashi did not look up. He continued polishing the blade, his movements calm and precise. After a long silence, he asked, Why do you seek strength? Ren straightened, surprised by the question. To win, to be respected, to be remembered. Musashi stopped sharpening and finally met Ren's eyes. Then you will never be strong, he said. Ren's pride flared. I train every day, he protested. I've fought many times. I only need a real master. Musashi rose slowly, his gaze steady. Then show me what you've learned. They moved to an open clearing. Ren gripped his wooden sword tightly, his heart racing. He charged forward with all his might, swinging as fast as he could. In a flash, Musashi moved. Ren's sword flew from his hands before he even understood what had happened. A moment later, he was on the ground, gasping for breath, humiliated. Musashi stood over him, calm and unshaken. You lost, not to me, he said, but to your own weakness. Then he turned and sat once more by the river. If you wish to defeat it, stay. If not, go. Ren stayed. Chapter 5, the first lessons that night. Ren sat across from Musashi by the fire. The master spoke little, but every word felt deliberate. The way of strength, he said quietly, is not learned through books or duels. It is learned in silence, while the world sleeps. He drew a small circle in the dirt. Inside this circle are 9 paths. Together they form the unbreakable. Ren leaned forward, eager to listen, and Musashi began to teach. The first principle was mastery. The fool chases many arts and masters none, Musashi said. The wise man chooses one and becomes it, Ren frowned. But if I focus only on one thing, won't I limit myself? Musashi looked into the fire. Better a deep well than a shallow river, he replied. When your blade is perfect, it cuts through everything. In our modern world, the same truth holds. People constantly jump from one pursuit to another, addicted to the thrill of beginnings but terrified of repetition. Yet studies from Stanford University show that when you divide your attention among too many tasks, your brain's ability to focus and retain information collapses. Growth requires depth, and depth requires devotion. The second principle was discomfort. The body seeks comfort and the mind obeys, Musashi said. A warrior breaks that chain. Ren slept on cold stones, woke before dawn, and trained until his hands bled. His muscles ached, but his spirit hardened. Today, neuroscience calls this adaptation. Your brain and body grow stronger only through repeated stress. Avoiding discomfort makes you fragile. Only through resistance does strength emerge. The third principle was clarity. When you fight, Musashi said, fear and pride are smoke in your eyes. You must burn them away to see clearly. Ren asked how he could do that. Musashi picked up a hot coal, held it in his palm, and said, by watching without excuses, pain is real, but it does not control me. That is truth. Most people cannot see their own weakness because ego distorts their vision. They compare, justify, and escape. Modern psychology calls the opposite metacognition, the ability to observe your own thoughts without judgment. The one who can see himself clearly already holds the advantage over those who cannot, as days turned into weeks. Ren began to feel the rhythm of training. Musashi made him strike a wooden post 100 times each morning. At first, he attacked with fury, but soon fatigue and frustration took over. His strikes became sloppy and weak. Musashi watched in silence until Ren stopped. Emotion is a storm, he said finally. Purpose is the mountain. It was a lesson Ren would carry for the rest of his life. Movement guided by emotion leads to chaos, but movement guided by purpose leads to mastery. That night, as Ren sat by the river, he stared at his reflection trembling in the water. For the first time, he understood that the real enemy he had been fighting was not out there. It was inside. The weakness he feared, the impatience he hated, the doubt he carried, they were all him. Musashi's voice broke the silence. Good, he said. You have finally met your true opponent. Ren bowed his head. The battle within had begun. Chapter 6. The 9 Paths of the Way. Ren awoke each morning before the sun, his breath turning to mist in the cold air. The days passed not in comfort, but in rhythm. Musashi gave him no praise, no encouragement, and no rest. Every motion had to be deliberate, every thought examined. Ren began to realize that training under Musashi was not about fighting others, it was about learning to govern his own chaos. On the 12th morning, while they practiced near the riverbank, Musashi finally began to speak again. You have seen 3 paths, he said. Now you will walk the rest, but remember, knowing the path is nothing, walking it every day, even when unseen, That is where strength is born. The fourth principle, Musashi explained, was attention to detail. A man who ignores small things is not prepared for great ones, he said. He handed Ren a dull blade and ordered him to polish it for hours. At first Ren thought it was punishment, but soon he noticed how the smallest motions mattered: the angle of his wrist, the rhythm of his breathing, the subtle pressure of his fingertips as he worked. He began to sense the blade's life. The world rewards those who care for what others overlook, Musashi said quietly. Excellence lives in the details, ignore them, and mediocrity becomes your master. Modern researchers might call this the compound effect. Tiny improvements repeated daily build exponential mastery in any art, from swordsmanship to writing to business. It is the invisible practice that creates visible greatness. The fifth principle was silence of the mind. Musashi often sat for long hours without speaking. His gaze fixed on the horizon. Ren would grow restless and ask what they were waiting for. Nothing, Musashi said. This is training, Ren frowned. But we're not doing anything. Musashi's voice was calm. That is why you have never seen yourself. The boy began to understand when he tried to quiet his thoughts. 1,000 inner voices, rose fears, doubts, and restless plans. It was only through enduring that storm that he began to taste stillness. Musashi taught him that silence is not emptiness. It is strength restrained. The world is loud, he said. Only those who can hear silence can hear truth. Today, psychologists call this mindfulness, the art of focusing awareness on the present moment. Neuroscientists from Kyoto University have found that deep, sustained focus literally rewires neural circuits. Improving attention, creativity, and emotional control, Musashi had known this centuries before science caught up. The sixth principle was endurance without witness. Train even when no one is watching, Musashi told him. The world honors victory, but the gods honor persistence. For days, Musashi disappeared into the forest, leaving Ren alone. The boy continued to train, striking his post until his muscles burned. When the master returned, he found Ren still practicing, sweat running down his face. Musashi nodded. Now you are beginning to live without audience, he said. The warrior who trains only for praise will die when ignored. Ren learned that self-respect was born in solitude. To rely on external approval was to build your foundation on sand. The seventh principle was balance. One evening, Musashi watched Ren sparring with a tree trunk. His movements were powerful but stiff. His strikes heavy but predictable. Musashi stopped him. You are all force, he said. No flow. He threw a pebble into the river. See how the water moves? It meets resistance but never resists. It yields. Then conquers. Ren watched the ripples spread, realizing how rigid his own energy had been. A warrior, Musashi continued, is both hard and soft, hard enough to endure, soft enough to adapt. In modern terms, we might call this psychological flexibility, the ability to maintain goals while adapting behavior. It is the difference between those who break under stress and those who bend but continue. The eighth principle was awareness beyond self. Musashi made Ren walk through the forest blindfolded. Guided only by his other senses, the boy stumbled, frustrated, and shouted, I can't do this. Musashi replied from the shadows, You cannot see because you think only of yourself. Listen to the wind, smell the earth, feel the world around you. Strength without awareness is blindness. Over time, Ren began to move more smoothly. He could hear birds shifting in trees, sense the direction of open air, and step lightly over uneven ground. Awareness, Musashi said, is the bridge between mind and world. The man who perceives only himself will always be defeated by what he cannot see. The ninth and final principle came one night as rain fell softly on the campfire. Musashi spoke while sharpening his sword. The path has no end, he said. A dull blade cuts no matter how proud its past victories. The moment you believe you have arrived, you begin to decay. Ren listened silently. Never stop sharpening the blade, Musashi continued. Never stop refining your mind. The warrior's way is not a destination, but an endless road. Ren understood then that mastery was not about reaching perfection. It was about living inside the process of improvement itself. A man who seeks to be finished will never be great. A man who seeks to keep learning will never be finished. Chapter 7. The Blade Within. Weeks turned into months. Ren no longer counted days. His mind grew quiet, his movements fluid, his breath steady. One morning, as the first light touched the river, Musashi asked him to draw his sword. They faced each other again, just as they had the day they met. The air was still. Ren did not rush forward. He breathed, observed, and moved with purpose. Their blades met once, twice, and then Musashi lowered his weapon. "Enough," he said. "You have learned to fight without fighting." Ren was confused. "But I still can't defeat you." Musashi smiled faintly. "You already have. The moment you stopped seeking victory, you overcame yourself." For the first time, Ren felt no pride and no shame, only calm. The boy who had come to prove his worth was gone. In his place stood a man who no longer needed to prove anything. The training had stripped away his illusions. Leaving something simple and real, Musashi nodded, as if reading his thoughts. "Now your sword is not made of steel," he said. "It is made of mind." Ren bowed deeply in that silence. He understood that the true blade was awareness itself, the ability to cut through illusion, distraction, and ego. Musashi turned away toward the river. "Remember," he said, "the sword is only a tool. The warrior's real weapon is his discipline." Chapter 8: The Modern Battlefield. Centuries have passed since that conversation, but the same battle continues in another form. You no longer hold a sword, but you face 1,000 invisible enemies each day. Your phone, your fears, your impulses, your fatigue. The modern battlefield is your attention. Musashi's principles are not relics of the past. They are instructions for surviving the present. When you wake up, the world attacks you with noise and temptation. Every notification is a tiny duel. Every distraction is a cut against your focus. To master anything today, your craft, your business, your body, or your relationships, you must live as Ren learned to live. Aware, deliberate, and unshaken. When you sit down to work, that is your training ground. When you resist the urge to escape discomfort, you are sharpening your mind. When you face conflict calmly instead of emotionally, you are applying the sword of balance. Every repetition, every deliberate act becomes your discipline forged in the modern fire. Musashi once said that a warrior must see that which cannot be seen today. This means recognizing the invisible enemies of your progress: self-doubt, comparison, distraction, and the false belief that you are already good enough. True warriors never assume mastery. They train as if they are always beginners, and in a world where everyone wants shortcuts, that humility becomes power. Chapter 9. The Science of Mastery. Modern research echoes what Musashi taught through experience at Kyoto University. Neuroscientists studying expert musicians discovered that years of deliberate, focused practice reshape the brain's motor cortex, increasing precision and efficiency. The same principle applies to any skill: writing, athletics, even emotional control. Repetition does not just improve performance. It changes who you are at a neurological level. Your habits carve the structure of your mind, just as water carves stone. A study from Harvard found that mindfulness and focus training physically thicken the brain regions associated with attention and self-control. What Musashi practiced through sword training was the ancient form of what we now call neuroplasticity, the power to rewire your identity through repetition. When you meditate, train, or stay consistent in your craft, you are not merely building skill. You are reshaping your very self. This is why Musashi said the path has no end, because your mind never stops changing. The warrior who stops training loses not only his edge but his identity. The brain, like the blade, dulls without friction. Every act of focus, every hour of discipline is a strike of the whetstone against the steel of your will. Chapter 10. The Modern Application. Think of your life now. Whatever your dream or field may be, the same code applies if you are an entrepreneur. Your duel is against inconsistency. If you are a student, your duel is against distraction. If you are an artist, your duel is against self-doubt. Each time you show up and practice when you don't feel like it, you win another unseen battle. The principles Musashi gave Ren still work today. Master one skill, reject comfort, see truth without distortion, act with purpose, and repeat without pride. Modern psychology confirms what Musashi knew intuitively: discipline rewires emotion and repetition shapes identity. You are not your thoughts. You are what you train. When you understand this, the path becomes clear. Your phone, your habits, your mind, they are all swords waiting to be sharpened. And the only way to sharpen them is through deliberate use. Every day you choose discipline over distraction, You step closer to the person you are meant to become. Chapter 11, The Musashi Method. Musashi believed that wisdom was useless if it did not translate into daily action. Ren had learned philosophy through pain, but the master wanted him to leave with a method, a way to live after he was gone. One evening, as they sat beneath a canopy of stars, Musashi drew 5 circles in the dirt. "These are the 5 actions of the disciplined," he said. "Walk them every day, and weakness will not follow you." The first was commitment to one path. "Choose one craft," Musashi said, "and give it your undivided devotion for 100 days. No second thoughts, no diversions, no chasing novelty. When you stop switching directions, the road becomes visible." Musashi understood what modern psychology would later call the focus advantage. People who commit to one pursuit build compound progress. Those who scatter their efforts start many things and finish none. The second was elimination. "A man cannot reach his destination if he drags every comfort behind him," Musashi said. "Choose one major distraction and remove it completely." Comfort is the silent thief of greatness. Whether it is social media, endless entertainment, or the approval of others, each distraction steals the energy needed for mastery. The third circle represented ritual. "Discipline is not emotion," Musashi told him. "It is structure. Create one ritual a daily hour of training, of study, of practice, and never break it. When the ritual becomes your identity, consistency is no longer a battle." The fourth was reflection. "Each night," Musashi said, "ask yourself, where was I weak today?" Do not judge yourself, only observe. Awareness without ego is the beginning of strength. Ren found that this nightly reflection revealed patterns of fear and laziness he had never noticed before. Modern neuroscience confirms this process. Deliberate self-assessment activates the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that governs long-term behavior and impulse control. The final circle was repetition. "Do the work again," Musashi said. "And when it becomes dull, do it again." The mind grows quiet through repetition, and the quiet mind becomes unstoppable. Musashi's framework was simple yet powerful: commitment, elimination, ritual, reflection, repetition. These 5 steps were the structure of discipline itself, the architecture of mastery that transcended time. Ren realized that the master had not just taught him to fight. He had taught him how to live. Chapter 12, The Mirror of Ego. Before Ren could leave, Musashi gave him one last test. He told him to return to the village where he was born and live there for 30 days, without revealing what he had learned. "Observe," Musashi said, "and see what your training has changed." Ren obeyed. When he arrived, the same people who had once mocked him now greeted him with surprise. They expected arrogance, stories of glory, and the swagger of a man who had trained with a legend. Instead, they saw calmness. He did his chores without complaint, spoke little, and helped others quietly. One afternoon, a group of young men challenged him to a spar. Just as they had before, Ren smiled politely and declined. "I have nothing to prove," he said. They laughed and called him a coward. He simply bowed and walked away. That night, as he sat by the shore, he realized that true mastery was invisible. Strength needed no witness. He had learned to defeat his ego, and with it, the endless hunger for validation. Musashi's voice echoed in his mind. The warrior does not seek recognition, he seeks refinement. In our modern world, this is the lesson most people refuse to learn. You crave shortcuts because you mistake speed for progress. You jump from one hobby to another because you are addicted to the feeling of being new at something. It makes you feel alive without demanding patience. You tell yourself you are different, too special to follow fundamentals. But what you call uniqueness is often just resistance to discipline. The truth is, you cannot transcend the basics until you respect them. Musashi mastered the simplest strike thousands of times before he ever invented a new one. The difference between greatness and mediocrity lies in the willingness to repeat what others find boring. You scroll through your phone for hours but cannot sit with silence for 10 minutes. You want to find yourself without losing comfort, to achieve mastery without monotony. Yet every scientific study on excellence agrees. Skill is built through deep practice, which means long periods of repetition, feedback, and focus. The human brain does not transform through excitement, it transforms through consistency. The warrior's path is not glamorous, but it is real. You can lie to the world about your progress, but you cannot lie to yourself. Musashi once said, "The way of the warrior is the resolute acceptance of death." In the modern sense, this means accepting the death of ego, the death of convenience, and the death of excuses until you bury those. You cannot be reborn into strength. That is why the path is hard, and that is why so few walk it. Chapter 13. The Final Transformation. At the end of his 30 days, Ren climbed once again to the mountain where Musashi waited. The master stood by the same river. As if he had not moved at all, when Ren approached, Musashi looked at him for a long moment and said, "Your stance has changed." Ren bowed. "I understand now," he said. "The enemy I fought was never the world. It was the part of me that wanted an easier life." Musashi nodded. "And what have you learned about strength?" Ren thought for a moment. "That strength is not the absence of weakness, it is the decision to fight it every day." A faint smile crossed Musashi's face. "Then you have learned the way." They stood together in silence as the river flowed between them. Ren no longer needed validation or instruction. The noise within him had quieted. He understood that the way of Musashi was not about dominance, but about mastery of self-living each moment with full attention, full honesty, and full discipline. The training had never been about swords. It had always been about life itself. Musashi turned to the horizon. "The true warrior," he said softly, "knows that the path ends only when he stops walking." Then, without another word, he began to walk away into the mist. Ren watched him disappear, feeling neither loss nor sadness, only clarity. The silence that followed was no longer empty. It was alive with understanding. Ren returned to his village and lived quietly for the rest of his days. People spoke of him as a man of great peace, though no one could explain why. They did not know that within his calmness burned the same fire that once drove him toward the mountains. The sword he carried was no longer made of metal, it was the invisible blade of discipline, sharpened every day through his actions. Chapter 14. The Invitation. Now it is your turn. The mountains and rivers have changed, but the path remains the same. You are surrounded by distractions, comforts, and endless noise. But within you, the same potential burns, the same will that drove Ren to seek Musashi, the same hunger for mastery that lives in every human being. The question is not whether the way exists. It is whether you will walk it. If you are tired of drifting, choose one skill, one goal, one craft, and dedicate yourself to it completely for the next 100 days. Remove the one habit that weakens your focus. Build a ritual that anchors you in discipline. Reflect each night on where you were weak, and repeat the process until it becomes your nature. These steps are not ancient superstition, they are proven frameworks for transforming potential into power. Your body will resist, your mind will rebel, but through repetition, both will obey. You will notice something strange as you persist. The things that once tempted you will lose their pull. The things that once seemed boring will become your meditation, and one morning, you will wake and realize that you no longer chase discipline, you have become it. That is when you will know that the warrior's way has entered your bones. The path will never get easier, you will simply grow stronger, and when others quit, distracted by comfort, you will keep walking because the reward for mastery is not applause, it is peace. So, if you feel that call inside you, answer it now, subscribe, stay, and continue this journey with us, not as followers, but as fellow travelers on the path. This is not just a story about Musashi, it is a mirror for your own life. The sword may have changed, but the battle remains. The one between your will and your weakness. The way of Musashi was never about killing enemies. It was about killing illusion, the illusion that you cannot change, the illusion that you are too tired, too late, or too ordinary. You are not. You are capable of forging yourself into something unshakable, but only if you choose to begin. Walk the path, train the mind, silence the noise. Sharpen the blade. The journey of mastery has no end, but it begins the moment you stop running from the work.